Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 3rd of September 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the terror attacks that have surged in the month of August. There's a report that has come out that talks about the increase in such terror attacks across Pakistan, comparing the months of August and July. And of course, the number of attacks, as we very well know, and we've been highlighting that in our previous shows as well, has increased. We know what happened in Balochistan a couple of days back. We also know what is happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We'll be highlighting different aspects of that and the resolve that the government and our forces have taken to thwart all such attempts. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the reduction in inflation and of course the prudent government policies that have resulted in this. Pakistan's consumer price index in August has risen 9.6% year on year, marking a 34-month low, dating from the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, and this is data that has showed that this is in fact the case. A sharp decline during August has opened a door for a potential interest rate cut as well. At the same time, Federal Minister for Finance and Revenue, Senator Mohammad Aurangzeb, has also said that due to the improved economic indicators, all the backlog including import LCs, contracts or dividend and profit remittances have been cleared. This and more will be discussed in our second segment. Then we will be talking about an Indian Coast Guard helicopter as well as a MiG-29 that have recently crashed in India, in fact. And of course, this points to a lot of issues concerning the Indian military, the Indian Air Force and its competence. We'll be highlighting that in our third story. And finally, we'll be talking about a Dutch canal vaulting contest, ladies and gentlemen. Now, contestants from all over the Netherlands have gathered in the central village of Netherlands for the yearly national Vierjeppen or canal vaulting contest. What it is all about, we'll be telling you that as part of our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the terror attacks that have surged across Pakistan, and the number has increased in the month of August compared to the month of July. To highlight that and different aspects surrounding that, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right in the studios, we've been joined by Brigadier retired Masud Ahmed Khan Saab. He is a defense analyst. Brigadier Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Saab, lots to ask from you, but we've already tackled this issue many times in the past. But this comes with a new spin. Now, 59 terror attacks in August of 2024 compared to 38 in July. This is a huge surge of attacks. Of course, 29 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 28 in Balochistan, 2 in Punjab, 84 people killed, 166 injured. This is, of course, as per a report that has been released by the Pakistan Institute of Peace Studies in Islamabad. What do you feel are the reasons behind this surge? Is it just the Balochistan incident or the incidents in Balochistan that have caused this increase? What are the factors behind this sudden increase in such cases?
Thank you very much. There is no doubt there is an alarming rise as far as the terrorist activity attacks are concerned in the two provinces. There is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. And we have been discussing in the past that the reasons of Afghan Taliban of taking over of Kabul and subsequently declared those so-called the truce which was ended by the then TTP Khariji elements, and then they announced of attack across Pakistan. But unfortunately, the major reason, I think it is basically the safe havens provided by Afghan Taliban government, the weapons and equipment available to them, logistic and financial support. That is one thing. And secondly, they are now using TTP and other terrorist organization as a proxy against Pakistan to pressurize the state of Pakistan. And in addition, there is also probably possibility of they are trying to, rather there is no possibility, they are trying to expand their version of Islam. And also they are trying us and forcing us to accommodate TTP inside Pakistan. And moreover, we have a long border, the western border, that is 2,611 kilometers long border. So it is very difficult to physically man each and every corner of the border area. So therefore, despite having a fence but those fences easily that has been negotiated in the past, and it's also damaged by the torrential rain, etc. So there is a possibility of infiltration from across the border. So these are possibilities, and they are getting all possible support from Afghan government, and facilitators are inside Pakistan. So for their many reasons, they are trying to damage on the behest of their handlers. In this case, particularly without any doubt, it is the Indian Raw. India is behind these attacks, whether in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Balochistan.
Now, talking about Balochistan, Brigadier Saab, the BLA, who is funding the Balochistan Liberation, this the BLA, and why has it suddenly become so proactive in this last month? If you just look at the month of August, there have been 28 terror incidents during this whole month alone. Why is that in your point of view?
It was basically, BLA was formed in early 80s, and basically then they came to limelight in 2000s, and they shown their power of immediately after the death of Akbar Bukti, when they started killing non-Baloch, non-ethnic Baloch or Pashtuns inside Balochistan. So that was the start. Subsequently, the responsibility was taken over by Ra. And we have seen in the last 20 years during the time of Ashraf Ghani and Karzai, basically the Indians, they basically gathered all the Baloch terror outfits, BLA, BLF, BRA, BRG, and they formed this BROS, the concept BROS, the Baloch Raji Ajoy Sangar. And then they were given this, Kannar Rajesh was the one who basically gathered these terrorist organization in Afghanistan. And then subsequently they were given this objective, or the mission was to destabilize Balochistan and also focus at the same time at Karachi. So we saw the terror attack carried out, executed by BLA, mainly targeting Chinese in Balochistan, as well as Chinese consulate and other targets in Karachi.
So what it aims to achieve in your point of view is our Chinese interests basically, and also reign of terror within Balochistan.
So there is that is reign of terror. Then there is a Majid Brigade within BLA.
Yes.
So Majid Brigade was formed in 2011 by Ra. So this is a suicidal group. If you recall, it was Sheri Baloch which carried out a suicide attack in Karachi University targeting Chinese. And more recently, Mahal Baloch, she was involved in the terror suicide attack in Bella area. Again, she was from Majid Brigade group, and there were two other ladies who were basically rescued. One was, another name was Mahal, and another was Nur Jahan. They were caught with the suicide jackets, but they have been they are returned to the mainstream line. But Majid Brigade basically is now, it was Aslam Achu who basically led this Majid Brigade in the past. And we saw his pictures, if you recall, getting treatment in the Indian hospitals, and he was killed in 2018 in Kandahar. So it is the basically BLA and Majid Brigade is the suicidal group, and interestingly, and when in 2020 a consortium of terrorist organization was made by the Ra in Afghanistan. So this BROS group was joined by TTP. So TTP also facilitated the suicide attacks by the Majid Brigade group. And more recently, if you recall, Nasrullah won he was so-called Emir of some defense commission of Taliban. He was captured by the security forces while entering into Pakistan from Afghanistan side in Balochistan. According to him, his move was facilitated by BLA. He also confirmed the presence of BLA present chief, the commander Bashir Zaib in Kabul, and then the interaction or the closeness of TTP and BLA. So
basically what you're trying to say is that there is a nexus of all of these terror outfits that are operating in Pakistan, whether it be the BLA or the TTP or all the associate terror organizations, and all of them are also being facilitated by Afghanistan. Speaking of all of that, I'd like to understand also, if we kind of come out of Balochistan and into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 29 terror attacks according to the report in the month of August alone. We've talked about TTP in the past as well. We've talked about the report that came out saying that it is the largest terror organizations in the region as well. Despite that, and despite the presence of other groups such as ISK or the Hafiz Gul Bahadur group or the Lashkar-e-Islam, why is the government of Afghanistan still not willing to? This is a question I always ask you, but the fact is I really want to understand whether there will ever be any change in the Afghan mindset vis-a-vis these terror outfits that are operating from within Afghanistan.
Maybe under the international pressure at some time and place, they may succumb to the international pressure. There is a possibility. But at presently, I think I am sure they are not interested. And recently, their army chief, he made a statement before the Afghan press, media journalist, and he said that Pakistan hasn't given any concrete evidence of TTP's presence in Afghanistan.
They have also said that whatever happens in Pakistan is Pakistan's internal matter, that Afghanistan has nothing to do with it.
Unfortunately, they talk of Islamic Sharia and they call it basically it is the government is based on Islamic Sharia, but at the same time they are telling lies. Look, how we give them the evidence. Who carried out the initial talks with Afghan, the TTP? It was facilitated by Afghan Taliban. Then our government was involved in those talks. That was one thing. The ulama of Pakistan, they visited Afghanistan, whom they met in Afghanistan. The tribal elders, the Mashran, they visited Afghanistan. So they met these Kharji leaders. Fazlur Rehman visited Afghanistan some time ago and he met Mullah Hebatullah Khunzat in Kandahar. In Kabul, he met Nurwali Masud and Gul Bahadur. That is the evidence. And then army, the DG ICCI and our defense minister, they visited Afghanistan. So they provided evidence. United Nations and analytical support and sanction monitoring team recent report 1st August this year, they say the presence of TTP in Afghanistan, their strength, their hideouts, and they are present in Kunar, training the suicide bombers, etc., General Kurela, etc. So this is a long list of evidence provided not only by Pakistan, by the international community, but despite unfortunately, they are not sincere as far as these efforts of Pakistan is concerned. So there will be no recognition of Afghanistan unless there is a regional consensus as far as the terrorism is concerned.
That recently also the Afghan Taliban said that they were ready to mediate again between the government and the TTP, and the government of Pakistan refused. So this is again proof that they are somehow and confirmed, facilitating.
So more of a recent documentary evidence which was provided, shown in our media, that the documents which were provided by Afghan Taliban to Nurwali Masud and other so-called Mufti Mazahim, the identity cards, then the transport, the weapons, equipment, and provided to them, and they are living a luxurious life in Kabul and surrounding areas. So their presence is confirmed by those documents. They are present inside Afghanistan. So there is no doubt as far as the presence of these so-called leaders of concern, whether they are from TTP or Jamaat-e-Ihrar or from Gul Bahadur group, they are inside Afghanistan.
I'd also like to understand, if we compare Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan to Punjab seems to be comparatively safer compared to these two provinces. 2 reported attacks in the month of August, injured 2 civilians, and 2 of the attackers are also killed. What are the reasons of Punjab as a province being a more secure one compared to these two?
The recent couple of attacks which were carried almost couple of days back, there was an attack in Isakhel in the Miawali area. So basically that is the inter-provincial boundaries. The area next to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Miawali is generally it is Lucky Marwat. If you go north, it is Dera Ismail Khan, etc. So the police in Punjab basically in the areas and the interprovincial boundaries, they are manning the checkposts. So probably they are more reactive and they are more vigilant as far as to counter these terrorists are concerned, as compared to probably the brunt of attacks are inside in the province of Balochistan and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But still, reaction as far as Punjab is concerned, we have seen recently they have been timely, and more recently in ICCI, the reaction was swift and fast.
All right. Also, you were talking of actions against terrorism, which means counter-terrorism. When you look at the counter-terrorism operations also in Pakistan, they seem to be more or less quite effective. 12 anti-militant operations in the country in August compared to 11 in the previous month. 88 militants are killed, 15 army soldiers and 3 policemen embrace martyrdom. 8 out of these 12 operations took place in KP and 4 took place in Balochistan. When you look at our counter-terrorism strategy, do you feel it is effective enough, or do you feel more needs to be done?
So there was a requirement of doing something additional as compared to already ongoing operations. So it was basically the concept of Azam-e-Istehkam which was introduced. So that was the continuity of the previous operation, but with more intensity. And that was recently we saw the reaction and the response which from the security forces. The success is 98%. The killing of terrorists is 98% as far as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan is concerned. That was the reaction from the security forces. So there is a requirement of great coordination, capacity building of police, especially the CTD in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. There is an issue in Balochistan. And so there is a requirement of equipping with latest communication equipment, weapons and equipment to these civil armed forces basically. Subsequently, the army can concentrate on major objectives and targets, so that they can at least can take the action at the local level by CTD. They have the capability. If we compare CTD in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the total strength is around 537. Where the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is facing the
maximum
93% of attack are targeted towards the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. So there is a requirement of more of equipping, recruiting most soldiers or troops for this CTD equipment, latest equipment, communication equipment, weapons, and also having some other equipment so that they can have the potential to react timely to these terrorist attack, or especially having weapons commensurating with those of the terrorists.
All right. Also, I'd like to understand, presiding over previous meeting of the federal government, not today's, our Prime Minister says that the doors of dialogue are open for those who believe in Pakistan and its constitution. However, no talks will be held with the enemies and terrorists. This is the same sentiment that has been reiterated by other sectors in Pakistan as well. Secondly, there's also huge talk of making the differentiation between the angry Baloch and the terrorists. How do you view these statements?
Recently, a press conference was made by Sarfraz Bukti, the Chief Minister of Balochistan. He said there is no concept of Naraz Baloch or angry Baloch. He said whosoever is fighting or carrying out anti-state activities is a terrorist for us. Anybody who acknowledges the Constitution of Pakistan, returns and surrenders, he is welcome. He can perform on his political and other duties under the Constitution of Pakistan, but he will be not allowed to use this term and then carry out terrorist activities on the behest of his handlers, mainly in this case on the behest of Indian Ra. And the recent coordinated attack, it was not of a local nature attack, it was a well-conceived basically plan and targeted, they were selected and timings were selected. The basic aim at the same time targeting civilians, basically innocent civilians, though there were those who were killed at Musakhel and in Sibi area. Aim was to create an impact, to create fear among other population, to create disappointment. So that was the conceived by the hostile agency Ra, and these all basically they were the the proxies they were used to execute those attacks across parts of Balochistan. So there is no doubt as far as the Indian involvement is concerned in Balochistan.
All right, last question, I'd like a short answer. Our Prime Minister talks about the state's response that should go beyond kinetic measures. What kind of non-kinetic measures should we look at? Also, the Chairman Council of Islamic Ideology, Dr. Allama Muhammad Raghib Naimi, has expressed full confidence and support for the PM's unwavering determination to eradicate the menace of terrorism from the country. What role could the religious ulama also play in this regard? Could that be part of the non-kinetic measures?
That could be one. Because probably it was Pegam-e-Pakistan.
Yes.
There was 1829 clerics, ulama across Pakistan they gathered and they signed a fatwa declaring these terrorist attacks and these suicide attacks un-Islamic, and they said anybody who is taking up arms against the state of Pakistan is un-Islamic, and they condemned basically this. So the message has basically gone across Pakistan. There is a consensus as far as the religious circles are concerned. At the same time, good governance is important. We have to look after the education, health and other civic facilities in Balochistan. Unemployment, the youth issues, they have to be addressed simultaneously. But at the same time, the Pakistan army is playing a very constructive role in the province of Balochistan, and by providing education, health and civic facilities across Balochistan. Today 40,000 Baloch, they are serving Pakistan army. There are 800 officers from Balochistan. The one who got the Sword of Honor from Pakistan Naval Academy, he was a Baloch Zehri. The one who got a Sword of Honor from Pakistan Military Academy, he was from Noshki, he was a Baloch. So they have the potential. The only thing is to give them an opportunity. So it is up to the government of Balochistan as well as federal government to provide them all the facilities so that they can excel in different fields. They have the potentials.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Masud Ahmad Khan Sahab, to have joined us. And as always, your opinion that matters a lot as far as what is happening in Pakistan and the way our security apparatus is also moving forward to thwart all such elements. And of course, you've also pointed out towards what needs to be done further as far as non-kinetic operations are concerned, and of course, what needs to be done to build the capacity of our forces as well, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Thank you very much, sir, for having joined us. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns economy. Now, we've heard a lot of problems regarding the economy of Pakistan. In the past, we've had different reports that have come out from the private sector. But now recently, Pakistan's Consumer Price Index, or CPI, in August has risen 9.6% year on year, marking a 34-month low. Data from the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics has shown. This sharp decline in inflation during the month of August has also opened the door for a potential interest rate cut. Now, our Federal Minister for Finance and Revenue, Senator Mohammad Aurangzeb, has also said that due to the improved economic indicators, all the backlog, including import LCs, contracts or dividend and profit remittances, have also been cleared. He said the inflation rate, of course, as I've pointed out, has reduced to 9.6% in August from 23.7% in the same period last year. And the policy rate is also coming down gradually, which is, of course, aiding the economy, specifically the industrial sector. And also said as the interest rate decreases, this will be beneficial for all segments. He also talked about the improvement in the credit ratings by Fitch and Moody's, which he says is an external recognition that the economy is moving in the right direction. He also said that the government is in advanced stages to seek assurances around external financing as authorities either finalization of the $7 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund. He also said that the impact of tax digitization measures is going to become evident from September onwards. So, of course, a lot of important developments that are happening, and of course, the way the economic indicators are showing signs of this, not only the strengthening of our economy, but also that it was moving in the right direction after the couple of months where we saw that the inflation rate was not up to the levels. Now this month, of course, as far as the CPI is concerned, it shows extremely good indicators specifically as far as inflation is concerned. And you know, one indicator leads to another indicator, and that leads to another one, and that basically moves to our not only strengthening of economy, but also people getting a lot of relief in different sectors as well. Now, we will be of course discussing the different aspects of our economy in detail, and we've been joined by two guests in the studios to discuss that. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is our very dear and regular guest, Dr. Manzoor Ahmed, trade arbitrator with the WTO, and you join us after quite a long time, Dr. Saab. So welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, we've been joined by Faad Waheed. He's the senior vice president of the ICCI. Faad, thank you very much to have joined us. Pleasure to have you on board. We'll begin with you, Dr. Saab. Pakistan CPI rises 9.6% year over year, which is a 34-month low, some say 33-month low, some say 34-month low. And of course, it measures household inflation, includes statistics about price change for categories of household expenditure. The monthly inflation rate was also 0.39%. How and what do you attribute this change to?
Well, several reasons. First, I think the government kept prudent policy rate quite high, so that the economy doesn't really grow, and so that was a big factor. And then our rupee stayed stable for the last several months.
Yes.
So that's another reason. Third is well, it's domestic as well as international. Domestic, that we had good crops, grain, all these food crops were.
Despite the devastation of 2022.
Yeah, well, you see, after the floods, it's normally the land gets fertilized. I mean, there's a side effect of that. So we had good crops. So that was one reason. But if you look at international, the FAO's what they call fruit basket price index has been much lower than what it was 2 years ago. And oh yes, and petroleum prices have behaved. I mean, they've relatively stayed low. So these are 4 or 5 factors that
have given rise to our inflation rate.
Our inflation rate coming down.
All right. Yeah. Father, I'd like to understand our wheat, flour, rice, cooking oil, ghee and sugar, which are all items that are used in the kitchen in all households, are priced now lower than a year ago on the retail level. A combination of favorable crop output that was also said by Dr. Manzoor, calm in the international market, that is also pointed by Dr. Manzoor, a remarkably stable PKI also Dr. Manzoor said, and government interventions have all played their part in keeping the prices in check. What effects could all these indicators have now on our economy and our consumption patterns?
Umar, we've been going through a very hard patch as an economy altogether, for the past 1.5 years. But I would still attribute this to the inflation, to the post-COVID area, because after COVID, the entire global inflation structure changed, and all the countries in the globe faced a lot of inflation. So now it's actually cooling down. So I would actually look at it as a cooling down effect of the entire post-COVID era. But then again, this last 1.5 year, talks with the IMF, trying to, restructure, privatize firms in Pakistan, these have attributed. But on the same side, when the staple items are concerned, when you talk about cooking oil, you talk about sugar, most of the items that we use in our kitchen are mostly imported. So the stable of rupee in the past 6 months has actually attributed to this part. But then again, this has to be now a constant practice of this government. I think they have to take measures to actually strengthen the part where they have to keep a very strict balance of governance and at the same time of delivering these products to the market. So yes, the environment at this point for investors, it might not be a good outlook, but it is actually being a better part.
It's going in the right
direction. Yes, that's the right word, I would say.
All right, Dr. Manzoor, data shows that urban inflation has increased by 11.7%, rural inflation has increased by 6.7% in August. What is the difference between urban and rural inflation? How do you compare the two?
You see, the economies are somewhat different, urban and rural, because in urban areas there's more use of transport, the fuel, etc. In the rural areas, they're mostly, this they stay around in their homes, etc.
So or they use their cattle to roam around, basically.
Yes, and they so most of the expenses, whatever is food, etc. They have their own houses. So
sometimes they also have their own crops.
Yeah, their own crops and this thing, but it's mostly linked to that. So urban is more, they have to. I mean, there's a lot of other expenses in that food basket, etc. That. Yeah,
all right. Faad, our Prime Minister expresses satisfaction, so has our Finance Minister today. Both of them addressed, our Prime Minister addressed the Cabinet, the Finance Minister addressed the media as well. Now, our Prime Minister says that this decrease in inflation is a reflection of the government's effective measures to improve the economy. He talks about shrinking the circular debt in the power sector. He talks about accelerating efforts of right-sizing and downsizing. He also talks about the need to control and eliminate evasion and corruption in revenue collection as well as to end smuggling. Although these are very important points, how important is the implementation of all that the Prime Minister has talked about today, and what further development goals, in your point of view, because of course you represent a very important organization, Pakistan need to achieve in order to attain economic prosperity?
Oh, what a beautiful question. That's something I was looking for. See, all these attributes and all these come together to change the economy. When we talk about right sizing, it hasn't really happened yet, but we're still in the process of it, which is a good thing. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of political instability in assemblies, so that's something we have to get away from, and right now stay on the path of recovery. So the most important thing right now is collecting taxes. How to collect taxes in the right way, and the way that the taxpayer is also happy, and there's a win-win situation between the tax revenue agencies and the stakeholders. So sitting down with stakeholders at this point, consultation of stakeholders is very important, because we're going through a very hard patch when it comes to collection of revenues. I do understand Prime Minister is happy with these numbers, but I would also want to see a little lower on these numbers, because where I talk about inflation coming down to single digit, I would like to see it in this. I would like to see the policy rate going down as well, because the money in circulation is not really there now. So that jam that has this now has to break the shackles out. So we have to bring in the money that's sitting in the banks, coming out in the economy and liquidating more assets today. If you see, real estate market of Pakistan has seen a bad crunch in the past 2 years. So that market needs to be revived as well. So these two areas, especially the reforms in taxes, digitization, and then I would talk about real estate, because real estate is something, the money's stuck there. Most of the population of Pakistanis have invested in a lot of real estate. So once that liquidation takes place, automatically it's going to come into the industry part. And that's where the industry is going to grow. And when we talk about exports, it's very important for us to make these special economic zones, to make them actually effective. The right word you used was implementation. How hard is this going to be?
Exactly.
I think that is the only area that Pakistan is missing, because we do all these, I would say, pre-practices of launching a project. What the actual failure we come is through during the implementation phase. So I think
and the
monitoring phase, yes. The implementation is very important. I think government needs to really restructure and make the capital structure reforms on this. So once we have those in place and the proper checks in place, the monitoring is going to be easy, and that's going to be a win-win situation for the stakeholders plus the government.
Another thing that's important for the government and for the people of Pakistan is also a continuity of policy. In this case, I mean our relationship with the International Monetary Fund. Dr. Manzoor, how important, in your point of view, is it to forge a long-term agreement with the IMF? Our Prime Minister says this is going to be, when this is finalized, this is going to be our last time we take a loan from the IMF. Well, strengthening foreign exchange reserves and maintaining fiscal discipline are also two important matters that I feel are the need of the day in order to maintain this trend of low inflation. What measures in that respect need to be taken?
To continue our successful partnership with
there
the
are
IMF?
three things: continue a successful relationship with the IMF until it ends. Secondly, maintaining fiscal discipline. Thirdly, strengthen foreign exchange reserves.
Okay. Well, with IMF, they already indicate what kind of conditions they have. They don't like subsidies. They say get rid of them, and then they don't like any artificially jacking up your exchange rate, and such things are basically, and also they're asking that you should a little bit open up your trade, and so energy subsidies on the top of list, and also this state operated enterprises, because they're incurring too many losses, and they say that you need to.
How do you maintain fiscal discipline, Dr. Saab?
Discipline is through not subsidizing, obviously. If you give subsidies, somebody else has to pay, and for example, if you don't charge the electricity rate what it costs you to produce, because we depend a lot on imported energy. Imported energy means that we produce our energy from petroleum and such products, and LNG, etc., and that's all imported. So if you don't recover the cost, so the circular debt keeps going up. So you have to maintain that discipline.
That is a huge question also, the maintenance of circular debt, but of course that is for another day. Faad, Federal Minister for Finance and Revenue, Senator Mohammad Aurangzeb, today says the government is in advanced stages to seek assurances around external financing for continuing its relationship with the IMF and this finalization of the $7 billion US loan from the organization. And he talks about delivering on structural reforms. When he talks of delivering on structural reforms, what is he exactly talking about?
I think what he's really indicating is towards collection of revenues. I would assume that, but given that the history that we've seen in Pakistan, the problems that we face is continuity again. Once the continuity is there of the policies, we as chambers and federation, we always ask for a 5-year program, minimum 5-year program. So once there's a 5-year program, all the parties come down and have a charter of economy basically to actually facilitate the environment. But then again we're stuck in these political problems. So we really need to stay out of it, and I think the minister here wants to deliver on these reforms, what he's talking about, but really and truly I think in the past 1.5 years, that's what I've witnessed, he's trying his best, but at this point he needs all parties to sit down, because once these parties sit down, the political instability decimates. We eliminate that, and then only we can look at better reforms. Given that the minister is also working hard with IMF, but IMF has also indicated even the credit rating, the Moody's elevated us from CAA2. So they've elevated us, given the caution that your governance needs to be better. So that's something we really need to put our heads together.
But what are the effects of these two indicators? Fitch and Moody's both have improved Pakistan's rating. What effect is it going to have on Pakistan's economy?
It's a very good outlook for Pakistan. The external financing agencies look at this as a positive way, but it's not very, I wouldn't say it's a very big step ahead, but it's it's a beginning there. But that being said, it's being understood that Pakistan is a better place to invest. So once the external people, like let's say we've already pledged from Gulf, there's about $7 billion coming from Gulf, but they've been pledged at this point. So once our credit ratings improve, the investor sitting outside of Pakistan is going to see that environment. And the environment, when we show him that real image of Pakistan, how lucrative Pakistan is in terms of business, I think that's the numbers that Moody's and Fitch have actually now realized, that this is actually the potential of Pakistan. And given that CPEC 2.0 is coming up, so that is something that's already adding to the profile of Pakistan, going global. So I would really say this is very positive for Pakistan.
So this is a good time for Pakistan's economy.
It's very good time for Pakistan.
Okay, Dr. Manzoor, our finance minister talks about all the backlog, including import LCs, contracts, dividend, profit remittances having been cleared because of the improved economic indicators. He said he talks about the inflation rate. He said that it is going to be beneficial for all segments. But he says there is no path to growth without stabilization. This is also what you pointed out, what Faad has pointed out. He talks about recognizing the positive macro indicators. What are these economic indicators that need to be stabilized?
Well, several things. First, we discussed inflation. That was very important. Then stability of the rupee. Then there's foreign direct investment coming in. 3, And then you have, we just talked about other investment coming in country because of this ratings, you know, and due to this, one of the big impact of these raise in rating is that normally you go to market to raise some loans, and you have to pay very high interest rate.
Yes.
But because if you're junk rate or something, then nobody would even give you any loan. You know, with this, you know, you have to pay much less.
All right.
And the other big impact, I think we didn't discuss it, but because of this reduction in inflation rate, our policy rate will come down, and that will be a lot of saving for the government in their interest, and not only for the government, for the private sector as well. You know, because a huge amount is now going in interest, and that will come down.
All right. The State Bank of Pakistan, Faad, had reduced the interest rate by 100 basic points to 13.5% on the 29th of July. And of course, with the sharp decline in inflation, this will open the door for another, could open the door for a potential rate cut. But in all of this, when on the one hand, the role of the government is very important, but the role of the chambers is also extremely important. How can the chambers also contribute with the government together to further stabilize or you know, strengthen our economy?
See, that is something we always look forward to. You know, we've always, and in every government and every year, even before the budgets, we sit down with the ministers, with the concerned authorities to, you know, bring the environment to a very stabilized position. And I think since we are the major stakeholders, I think we are the only stakeholders in this point. We always try our best to, you know, cooperate, and we make sure, you know, to bring in new investments. We give us new ideas, and I think because when there's a conducive environment of, you know, someone feels like a businessman feeling comfortable in his own zone, he's only going to outperform himself then. And that's the environment we're looking for. You know, we always try to tell our fellow, you know, colleagues in the business corridors, you know, how do we move forward with this? And really and truly, it's more about exposure of these people who are sitting in, you know, making policies for us. When the government leaves the business arena and goes into policy making, that's the best part. And I think, you know, that's where a little failure of the SEOs has been, because the state-owned enterprises became stakeholders as well as in the policy making. So the conflict of interest, actually, that created a hurdle. So I think it's wearing down now. It's actually coming to a realization point where SEOs and, you know, government are coming into a realization of understanding that this environment, this area is only for businessmen. Let them do their thing, and let's just, you know, govern them. Let's just make policies for them. And I think once that is done, we chambers, and I speak on behalf of all Pakistani chambers and even the federation, that, you know, once the stakeholders are on board on policy and decision making, we can make life a lot easier. We can bring in a lot of foreign direct investment, and we can show the real image of Pakistan that is we are still unable to, you know, portray out there.
Thank you very much, Faad. Waheed, Senior Vice President ICCI, Dr. Manzoor, Ahmed, Trade Arbitrator with WTO, to have joined us, to have talked to us about economy. This is your specialization, not mine, but I can only ask, and I depend on people like you to give us more apt answers, not only for myself but also for my audience. Thank you very much to both of you to have come all the way to the studios and to have enlightened us on this very important topic. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns the Indian Coast Guard helicopter and a MiG-29 that have crashed in India. Now, recent incidents involving the Indian military have raised a lot of questions regarding its competence and professionalism. A Coast Guard helicopter has crashed into the Arabian Sea off the coast of Gujarat while on a rescue mission with 2 pilots and 2 divers on board. The pilots are still missing. In a separate incident, a MiG-29 fighter jet of the Indian Air Force has crashed on the night of 2nd and the 3rd September in the Barmer sector of Rajasthan. The jet reportedly went down due to pilot inexperience shortly after takeoff. These incidents, of course, cast a lot of doubts about the Indian military's preparedness, and of course also a lot of questions about the impact of the government policies on the defense sector. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, contestants from all over the Netherlands have gathered in the central village. I can't pronounce the name, it's too difficult for me, for a yearly national Vlierjeppen or canal vaulting contest. Now, this name Vlierjeppen comes from the Frisian language, and it originally meant graceful jumping, according to the Dutch Center for Intangible Cultural heritage. Over 2,000 people have gathered to watch 48 competitors across 5 categories battle it out for the championship, where contestants have to vault the greatest distance across the water using a pole, as you can see in the images in your parallel window. Contestants run at a long pole on the side of a canal, jump in, and while the pole is tipping over onto the other side, they climb on as high as they can to land as far as possible on the opposite bank. This of course whole exercise or the traditional contest dates back to the 1700s. It's interesting, and of course, as we say, part of culture and traditions, as we also have very distinct culture and traditions, we need to maintain them as the Dutch are also maintaining theirs. With that, we'll come to an end of today's newsroom. See you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.